to investigate a possible crime. I'm here to identify you as part of that possible crime.
Mosque Diaries is a citizen media project attempting to draw attention to serious violations of the law in the city of Bloomington, Minnesota's fifth largest. These city code violations have been committed for many years by Dar al-Farouk, a Minnesota mosque with proven ties to Muslim jihadists.
Up to 30 Somali Americans, all of whom frequented the Al-Farouk Youth and Family Center, are reportedly believed to have joined or tried to join terrorist groups overseas.
We do believe it's the job of law enforcement to investigate the mosque for their role in producing over 30 jihadists. 3 of them went to jail on charges of terrorism. However, we also believe that we the people have the right to raise any questions we deem relevant to this situation. The importance of this project is even more evident given the persistent refusal of the mainstream media in Minnesota to expose the mosque's violations of city code. The release of Episode 1 sent the mosque and its ideological allies on the left scrambling for ways to shut down our production. Leftist activists with ties to the Democratic Party began letter-writing campaigns to the FBI, the Minnesota Attorney General, and other authorities, asking them to intervene and to have our video removed from YouTube. These actions, meant to stifle free speech, are as troubling as they are revealing of the mindset driving the Muslims' propagandists. They clearly do not want us asking questions that might lead to serious consequences if the law was to be followed in Minnesota. In this episode, we'd like to turn our attention to the role of the mayor of the city of Bloomington in allowing the situation to deteriorate to where it is today.
We're focusing on our community image and vision and seeing it clearly. We want that image positive.
When we first started filming on December 14, 2018, our goal was to document the amount of traffic taking place on a weekly basis around the time of prayer, a clear violation of city code. No one was expecting us. The Muslims were clearly caught off guard. But as puzzling as our presence was to them, they probably didn't expect us to see come back the following week, on December 21st, doing the exact same thing, filming the excessive amount of traffic. Traffic that shouldn't be there if city code was to be applied correctly. As soon as our camera approached the building, the situation escalated quickly. The Muslims wanted to know why we are filming. They stated over and over again that they consider the public property around the mosque as their own.
You are in a private parking, so I like to know the reason you are recording.
No, it's public.
No, it's private.
No.
And the police are here, it's private.
It's public.
It's private.
Why are they restricting access to areas that must remain accessible to the public under the conditional use permit? Why are they not educated on the limitations conditional use permits place on such property? Do these people even have the concept of what public property means, and that freedom of speech on public property in the United States is protected by the U.S. Constitution?
Where do you have allowance to do this? Why you have to film it? You have a right to do this?
Yeah, it's called the First Amendment. Have you heard of it?
Our guess is not, since they consider Islamic law, Sharia, to be supreme in regards to the Constitution. This is clearly taught by Islam and the imams at Dar al-Farouk. They even have Islamic courts and so-called jurisprudence, which basically is creating a parallel state within the state, something the Muslims have been doing for 1,400 years throughout Islamic history. Now, let's turn our attention to the city of Bloomington. What is the city doing about Dar al-Farouk's out-of-control behavior? All evidence points to the city basically assisting the Muslims in their plan to appropriate public land and funds. Most recently, the City of Bloomington approved plans to build additional access to the Smith Park parking lot using public funds. Why is the city using public funds to build additional access to the parking lot? The residents of Bloomington don't need this access, yet the city has voted on using public funds to build a new road for the Muslims for when they flood the area with traffic during their prayer hours. Is the city of Bloomington using public funds to build roads for Christian churches or synagogues? Of course not. The harsh reality is that for years the city of Bloomington has been blatantly ignoring the complaints of residents relative to the Muslims violating city code. Based on evidence presented to our team by members of the community, we can safely say that Gene Winstead, the mayor of Bloomington, is well acquainted with the complaints by residents regarding the increased levels of traffic, excessive noise, parking violations, and the way the Muslims have taken over Smith Park.
When Dar Al Farouk applied for its conditional use permit and its JUA, it misrepresented the size and the use intentions it had to you. It never intended to live by the occupancy and use limits it proposed, and promptly became a runaway abusive use, and you allowed it.
What has the mayor done about all this? He doesn't seem to have done anything to apply city code to these violations. It appears that he is enabling the takeover. Is he aiding and abetting the Muslims? Or is he just incredibly incompetent and doesn't know how to apply city code? Or perhaps he is threatened and intimidated by a mosque which has produced over 30 jihadists? We're not quite sure, but one thing that has become clear is that the city seems to be doing a very poor job in training the Bloomington police force in regards to issues surrounding Dar Al Farouk. We experienced this firsthand. As already stated, Dar Al Farouk has a conditional use permit under which the public is allowed 24/7 access to the property in front of the mosque and around it. Access to Smith Park, which is public property, as well as other sections of property around the building, cannot be restricted by the mosque at any time. However, the Muslims completely disregard this and try to intimidate people who approach their building, threatening them with calling the police. That is exactly what they did with our crew when we went there to film on December 21st. To their shock, however, the officer who arrived at the scene clearly upheld our right to film, affirmed the fact that we were standing on public property, and ordered the Muslims to leave the cameraman alone.
Leave him alone, he's on city property, you understand? You can't use my car. Fine. It's all in public. It's all in public.
I don't feel safe. He took my number. He took everything. I don't feel safe.
Having heard the police officer uphold our right to film on public property, and having it on tape, we came back to film the traffic levels at Dar Al Farouk on Friday, December 28th. This was now the third consecutive week of filming the traffic at Dar Al Farouk, and the Muslims became very upset. Our mosque filming diary was getting filled with some very interesting findings. We realized the Muslims are not used to being held accountable. They don't like it for someone to document week after week how they violate city code. The police report about the December 28th filming shows that as soon as our camera approached their building, Muslims began to flood the police station with calls, creating fake panic and fear about nothing. The officers who arrived at the scene under the leadership of Officer Troy Meyer had a very different take on the situation compared to the officer who handled the exact same situation at the exact same property the previous week. Unlike the officer from December 21st who clearly upheld our right to film, these officers had something very different in mind. Officer Meyer announced that they were there to investigate a possible crime and demanded members of our team to turn in their driver's licenses and identify ourselves. At the advice of our attorney who was at the scene, we provided the officers with our IDs while they kept asking us if we knew more about this mosque and what has been going on there.
Okay, if you refuse to identify yourself, you can be arrested. Do you understand that? ID, please.
Yes, sir. Are we breaking the law?
Sir, okay? You're more than happy. I'm happy to be on camera. I've been on camera for 20 years, okay? I have no problem with that. What I'm asking is, do you gentlemen have identification? I'm here to investigate a possible crime. I'm here to identify you as part of that possible crime. Do you have an ID, please?
As per our attorney's instructions.
Give him your ID.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, go ahead and show me your ID.
Yeah, I do.
You need to show it to me.
Please show me your ID. I don't understand what's so hard. I don't get it.
I don't know, sir.
I mean, videotape it all so that it's all recorded, please.
I also have my ID.
Okay, great. Instead of speaking into the microphone, please grab your ID.
Okay, I will as soon as.
Why are they here?
They're here to film.
You were called here on a complaint of people filming on property.
Okay.
Why we're here?
Is this private property or is it public property?
You tell me.
This is private property to the best of my knowledge.
To our shock, as we were leaving the scene, an unmarked vehicle approached one of our team members and began taking pictures of him. We were definitely treated with hostility. Who is the Bloomington police protecting? All citizens or just the Muslims? Why is the city of Bloomington not educating the officers about the fact that the property Dar Al Farouk is operating on is using a conditional use permit? This means they can't restrict access to public areas, including access to sidewalks and Smith Park. Now, here is another very important piece of information the mayor and the media have not told the community. The mosque doesn't even own this property legally. They are just tenants. Mayor Gene Winstead has been telling the people of the city of Bloomington that the property is owned by Dar Al Farouk, supposedly a mosque. Is it really? Why hasn't Mayor Winstead informed the city who the real owner of the property is? Does he know who the real owner of the building is? Or is he covering up the truth from the Bloomington Police Department and the people of the city of Bloomington? Or is he so incompetent that he doesn't know how to perform the necessary due diligence and protect the interests of his constituents? This and more coming up next in Episode 3 of the Mosque Diaries.